Okay, I'm going to start now. Good morning. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will be automatically muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Any registered participants will be participating by audio only. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustments of the City of Toronto is called to order. This committee considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaws that apply to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with our decision, it may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Today, I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation if required. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5 minutes. When addressing the committee, please state your name and address and confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will present the application to the committee first. Please note, the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. If the application is substantially revised, the committee may decide to defer it to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals in support of or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all other speakers are finished, the applicant agent has an opportunity to rebut issues raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, do we have do we need a motion to confirm the minutes of the last meeting?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, panel members. Yes, it's the March 30th Panel A and Panel B hearings.
Okay. Do we have a motion to confirm the meetings? Joanna, a seconder? Peter? All in favor of confirmation of the minutes? You have your confirmation, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest of the panel or staff for this morning's items? Thank you. I understand we have 4 deferral requests, and we'll deal with those at the outset since there are 4 of them. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any files to be closed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, see none for today.
All right, thank you. So the first item to be deferred is number 3, 693 Ossington Avenue. The purpose of this application is to construct a 4-story apartment building with sunken front and rear patios containing 18 residential units and to convert the existing garages into laneway suites containing 2 units by joining the garages and constructing a 2nd-story addition. With this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant, staff report from Urban Forestry, support from 715 Ossington Avenue, and opposition from 1 property on Ossington and 13 properties on Roxton Road. Mr. Dowsett.
Just a minute, Mr. Chair.
Is he with us?
He is. Just 1 minute.
Good morning, Paul Dowsett here.
Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. Sorry.
Can we have your name and address for the record, sir?
Yes, my name is Paul Dowsett. I'm the agent for the applicant from the Architect Builders Collaborative, and we're at 943 Queen Street East.
Okay. And could you tell us, I understand you want a deferral. Would you please tell us why?
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, the public notice was circulated a little earlier than usual while we were still in the process of sorting out the actual variances to accommodate recommendations from the City of Toronto Community Planning and other departments. As a result, several minor variances will have different statistics. 2 variances will be removed and a new variance will be added in comparison to what the committee has before them today. Thus, we request a deferral so that the correct variances can be circulated to the neighbors and heard by the committee. We're also appreciative of the letters of concern from the neighbors, and in this time of deferral, we will certainly address those issues with the neighbors individually and publicly through a Zoom meeting, and we'll prepare shadow study to the neighbor.
Okay, you faded out, Mr. Dawson, for a moment when you got to shadow. So you're going to have a shadow study as well?
Yes, we will do a shadow study, and then we will have a proper outreach with the neighborhood via Zoom and personally with those who wrote letters of concern with the proper variances.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Elia Mazawi.
Mr. Chair, I don't see Elliot here, but Elliot is in support of the application.
Yeah, okay, you're echoing. Okay. Paula Klein and Mary Lou Fassel.
We appreciate an opportunity to meet with the developers, and we're fine with a request for the deferral.
Thank you very much. Barry Weisletter.
Hello?
Yes. We have
Can you
your
hear me?
name and your address, sir, for the record.
Yes, my name is Barry Weisletter. I live at 526 Roxton Road, where I have resided for 40 years. And I appreciate the opportunity to address the committee.
Okay, so the applicant has asked for a deferral. Did you hear his comments?
I did, and I support the request for a deferral. It would be good to have all of the latest pertinent information for the variance request is considered. So I support the deferral.
All right, thank you very much. Maria Amaral.
Good morning. My name is Maria Amaral, and I'm at 530 Roxton Road. And I too support the request for the deferral, and I look forward to meeting with the developers to talk about the building.
Thank you very much. Samuel Bayevsky.
Mr. Chair, Samuel doesn't appear to be here right now. We emailed him and we've called him. Looks like we've got him on the line. Let me unmute him.
But he's not here.
Hello?
Samuel, have you been? Are you there?
Mr. Bayevsky?
Yeah, I'm here.
I guess he's here. Could we have your name and address for the record, sir?
Yep. Samuel Bayevsky, 504 Roxton Road.
Okay. And are you for or against the deferral?
I am for the deferral.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel,
All right.
do we have any comments or a motion for deferral? Joanna?
Thank you. Given the number of objections to this proposal, I think that it is appropriate to accept the undertaking of the applicant that they will do an outreach. The variances being amended is also a good reason so that everybody's clear about what's being proposed given the degree of interest and opposition to this project. So if my colleagues have no further comments, I'd be prepared to move a motion to defer the application.
All right, do we have a seconder? Peter, all in favor of a deferral? You have your deferral, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
All right, and move on to number 5. 53 Roblin Avenue, and the purpose of this application is to alter the existing one-story detached dwelling by constructing a 2-story side addition, a complete second-story addition, a rear deck, and a front covered porch. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and reports from Transportation and Urban Forestry. Mr. Kenaridis?
Nikki, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Committee of Adjustment. My name is Nikki Kokologianakis. I am the registered owner, applicant, and agent acting for 53 Roblin Avenue for this hearing.
Right. And your address is 53 Roblin Avenue?
Correct, sir.
All right, thank you. I understand you're asking for a deferral.
Right here.
I got
Yes.
it.
Pardon?
She's asking for a deferral too, this one.
Yes, we are asking for a deferral. Thank you.
Okay, can you tell us why?
Certainly, sir. We are asking for a deferral with respect to time to rectify an issue with respect to variance number 6 regarding the 0 parking spaces issue. It was conveyed to us by transportation by the filing of their report on April 6th. Requesting a condition for what they're deeming an obsolete driveway. However, we are actually in fact intending to utilize the space located immediately in front of the addition as a parking space. However, through inadvertence, it was labeled as an existing driveway as opposed to having the designated space labeled appropriately as a parking space. As a result, I'm sorry?
You have to change the variance then with respect to parking.
That's correct. And so we require some time, as you know, the condition isn't, attractive. We actually do intend to utilize the space as a parking space.
Okay,
And so
so-
we require time to revise our plans and resubmit to zoning.
Yeah, and a new notice will have to go out because you changed the variance. Okay, thank you very
Correct, sir.
much, panel.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion for a deferral? Peter?
Thanks, Chair. I think that a deferral is appropriate to allow the applicant time to perfect their application and deal with any issues with transportation. So I move to defer the application.
All right. Aaron, you second that motion? Okay, all in favor? You have your deferral, thank you very much. Number 696 Witchwood Park. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 3-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2nd-story addition and deck. And with this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. Correspondence from Ravine and Natural Feature Protection, a report from Heritage Preservation, support from addresses in Witchwood Park and 59 Burnside Drive, and correspondence and concern or interest from 98 Witchwood Park. Mr. O'Brien?
Yes,
Yes, can we have your name and address for the record, sir?
my name is Keith O'Brien, and I'm the agent for the owner of 96 Witchwood Park,
And your address?
591 Coxwell.
All right, thank you. And why do you need a deferral?
Since the application was made, there's been a change in the health condition of one family member, prompting the owner to add an elevator to the project. This causes a very minor increase to the floor space index. It's not enough to actually move the needle on the percentage. We're still at 69%. However, we are adding 5 square meters. If the committee deems this change minor enough, we're happy to proceed today. However, if the committee decides that we do need time for a revised public notice to be circulated, in that event, we would be requesting deferral.
Okay, so let me put that to the panel and we'll see. Panel, do you think we need a deferral, or is this alteration of the variance number 2 minor enough that we should be able to proceed? Peter?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, it appears very minor to me. I'd be willing to hear it, but I'd like to get staff's perspective on their view of, I guess, the legality of this.
Sabrina?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Is variance number 2 increasing?
Yes, it's increasing the
The
floor
GFA?
space index of 69 times the area of the lot does not increase, but the area of the dwelling increases by 5 square meters to 419.26. Now, we
It's
have
actually
no
419.4.
Pardon?
419.4.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't go, it's not exactly 5 meters, it's just short of 5 meters.
Yes.
Okay,
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we could proceed today.
yeah, I think so. Peter, is that okay with you?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so Joanne and Aaron, is that okay with you that we proceed? We don't need a motion to proceed.
I'm okay. Thanks very much.
Okay, Joanne?
I don't have a problem because the variance itself, in terms of FSI, is not changing.
Yes, okay, fine. Let's move on to number 19. Oh, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. O'Brien, we're going to proceed. We'll come to you in order.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 19. '29 Borden Street. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2 1/2 story townhouse by constructing a 3rd story addition, rear basement walkout, and a new rear deck. With this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant and a report from community planning and correspondence and interest from the Harvard Village Residents Association. We need Lindsay Bruce.
Yes, present.
Yes, can we have your name and your address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Lindsay Bruce. I'm the acting agent for the owners at 29 Borden. My address is 15 Colburn Street, Hamilton, Ontario.
Okay, and why are you asking for deferral?
So we received some feedback from community planning back on March 29th, and then proceeded to submit a written request for deferral on March 31st. Since then, we have also been contacted by the Harvard Residents Association, and we are looking to modify the plans and therefore modify the variances and come back with a revised application.
All right, thank you. Panel, do we have a motion? Joanne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is appropriate to defer. Planning's on record as noting what their concerns are, and they're also suggesting deferral to allow for some conversation amendments. So I believe it's appropriate, and I'd like to move a motion to defer the application.
All right, thank you. Seconder, Aaron, all in favor of the deferral? You have your deferral. Thank you very much. Okay, let us now go back to number 1. Number 1, 47 Warwick Avenue, and the purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story detached dwelling by extending the front garage and constructing a 2nd story addition above, a partial 3rd story, and a 3rd story rear balcony. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and 4 form letters in support from Warwick Avenue, Glen Cedar Road, and Strathern Road. Mr. Laszlo?
Morning, I'm Drew Laszlo, agent for the owner. Address is 3317 Yonge Street.
Okay. We have a few variances. Could we have a brief presentation, sir?
Of course. So again, this is for an addition. It's kind of pulling out the existing front garage, building on top of it, and adding a partial third story over the existing dwelling. First thing, I would like to eliminate variance, and you should have it on file, I believe. I'd like to eliminate variance number 2. That's the front yard setback variance, if I may. So that will leave us with 9 variances. First one being building length, which is an existing condition. We are staying at the same length as the existing dwelling. Even though we're pulling the proposed front garage forward a couple feet, it's still in line with the existing front bay window that's there. So we are, in essence, adding no additional length to the existing dwelling. So skipping number 2 because it's been eliminated, we're going on to variance number 3, which is the FSI. We're asking for 84% where 40 is permitted, or 0.84 where 0.4 is permitted. The third story is making up approximately 0.1 of this, or 10% of this. 84% tends to be relatively normal for the area. There's many other additional approvals by committee of adjustment that have been much higher than that for the area. Going on to variance number 4, west side setback variance. That is just for the kind of front garage addition and the second story addition above that. And we just want to stay, again, it's an existing condition. We just want to stay in line with the existing sidewall of the house that's there presently. Number 5 has to do with the eaves trough, encroaching a bit too close to the side property line. So we need a minor variance for that. Variance number 6 has to do with the driveway width. It's 100% existing. I'm sorry, garage width, we're not changing it. Yes, we're pulling the front of the garage out, but the interior width is remaining. So again, it's an existing condition. Number 7 as well, another existing condition. Has to do with the front yard landscaping. We are not changing a thing. It is staying exactly the way it has been. Variance number 8 has to do with a rear balcony off the 3rd story. It's a bit larger than what's permitted. We need that balcony for 2 reasons. Number 1, to let some light into the 3rd story, the proposed 3rd story. And we need it, as far as the building code is concerned, for egress issues. We need a balcony off the 3rd story. Let's see, variance number 9 just has to do with the side projection of the proposed front canopy. Again, encroaching a bit too close to the west property line. So we need a variance for that. And variance number 10 has to do with the garage width. Yes, okay, so the interior width of the garage, I incorrectly referred to variance number 6 as variance numbers 6 and 10 are related. It just has to do with the width of the garage and the driveway. They're both existing. They are both not being modified. Thank you. I hope I didn't confuse anybody there.
Okay, let's move on. Mr. Fink?
Richard, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Thank you. So I assume it's not possible to do a visual of me, just voice?
Just voice.
All right. So let me explain what my difficulty is with the proposal.
All right, Mr. Fink, just for the record, could we have your name and your address,
yes.
please?
It's Richard Fink. I'm the owner and occupier at 49 Warwick, which is the property to the west, directly west of the property under application.
Timer. Yeah.
So let me explain what my problem is. The property owners are trying to bring the garage forward by a total of approximately 6 feet. And our problem is the final 2 feet protruding towards the street. So 120 centimeter extension of the garage forward, we don't have a problem with that. That will mean that the garage is equal to the main frontage of the existing building. It's the final 65 centimeters, which is approximately 2 feet, 2 inches that we have the problem with. The reason we have that problem is that the garage will now extend 2 feet or 65 centimeters in front of our front entrance. And the second problem is that where I'm sitting here now, where I do my work from home, instead of looking at the open sky, I will be looking at a brick wall. So exiting the property, I will be approximately 80 centimeters away from a brick wall to my right, which is extending 65 centimeters to the right. And when I have to access the side of the property on the east side, the access will be cut in half from approximately 30 centimeters, which it is now, to 15 centimeters. The applicants have offered to reconfigure the walkway. I'm content with that, but I'm not content with the garage going forward by the length they have it. So I asked them why they need to extend the garage. They told me they need to park their car and they need an exit from the house into the garage. The reason they need this extra space is because the previous owners extended the interior of the building and took away part of the garage. I've suggested to them that they put the stairs to enter into the garage inside their residence rather than having the stairs in the garage itself. If the stairs were inside the residence, they would not have to extend the garage the extra 2 feet or 60 centimeters that we're objecting to. So the brick wall that will be adjacent to our property is going to block light into my vestibule. I don't oppose that. Having to lose foliage in the front yard in order to redo the stairs and an entrance, I don't oppose that. Having a third floor, which is going to block some of the light coming into the skylight in my roof, which faces their property, I don't oppose that. What I oppose is a brick wall essentially 5 feet away from where I exit from the property. Those are my submissions in opposition to the application. As I say, I only oppose one aspect of it.
Right, thank you. Mr. Laszlo?
Yes, thank you. So number one, we kept the front projection, the proposed front projection of the garage. We kept that to 1 story specifically to minimize impact on the neighbor. You know, like we could have, I guess, proposed doing the second story addition, you know, and keeping it in line, but we've stepped it back from the proposed front garage wall. We do conform to the front yard setback, so we don't require a variance to project that 2 feet forward as we're proposing. The door, the neighbor's door is actually, so even though there may be approximately 5 feet between the houses, the door itself onto the neighboring property, Mr. Fink's property, that is actually, it's approximately 2 to 3 feet over, like an additional 2 to 3 feet further away from our garage. So I feel there is enough of a buffer there. So I believe it is minor, this 2 foot projection that's being proposed. Thank you.
So what about blocking light into Mr. Fink's den or whichever room he uses as an office?
I'm not sure how the additional 2 feet would necessarily cause like a blockage of light, because Mr. Fink mentioned that he's okay with the I guess the portion from the main front wall back. So again, we're just focusing on this front 2 feet. And I'm not sure, I don't know the exact position of the window, or I don't know if Mr. Fink's referring to the light coming in to his front door, or there is a window at the side. I'm unaware of that. So, but I still don't believe a 2-foot projection, which is permitted, is going to block that much light.
So
Thank you.
This doesn't relate to any variance?
There is a side yard setback variance related to that addition, but as for the 2 feet forward, that we are I believe like 1'9" away. We're supposed to be 3 feet away from the side property line. So that in itself is a variance, but the 2 feet forward that we're pulling, that conforms. We will be in line, like our proposed front garage projection will be in line with Mr. Fink's bay window, the bay window that presently exists on our house, number 47. There you go. So we're just pulling 2 feet forward. We'll be in line pretty well with the bay window as shown on number 47.
And with Mr. Fink's door? Is that his door beside the garage?
Yes, right there, exactly.
Yeah. Is there I'm trying to see, is that a window? Where
There looks like there could be yes, I believe so. But again, Mr. Fink said he doesn't have a problem with our proposed addition up to the front of the existing house. It's only the front 2 feet.
And that's not going to have a roof, is it? I mean, it's not going to have a peaked roof or anything like that?
It has a very, if you refer to the front elevation on file, you can see that. Yeah, there's a canopy, but it is just 1 story, so it is not it's not high.
Okay, all right. So we'll now take it into panel, unless anybody has a question?
There.
Okay, all right. Peter, do you have any comments?
Sure. Thanks, Chair. I think what's being proposed is reasonable. I think the 3rd floor is mostly within the attic space, and I think this 2-foot extension in the front won't have significant negative impacts on the neighbor. I think the window being, especially on the farther side of the house away from this addition. So I think the variances being requested are minor and are reasonable. So I'd be happy to bring a motion for approval.
Let's just canvass the other panel members, see if they have any comments. Joanne, you don't have comments? Aaron? Okay. Peter, go ahead and make a motion.
Yeah, I move a motion for approval with no conditions.
All right.
As amended?
Joanne, seconds. All in favor?
Pardon me, as amended, yes.
Yeah. Joanne? All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 2, 40 Metcalf Street. Purpose of the application is to alter the existing 2 1/2 story townhouse by constructing a rear 1-story addition and a complete 3rd story addition with a balcony above the existing rear 2-story addition. The existing rear yard parking pad will be maintained abutting the laneway. That's Mickey Lane. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have correspondence from Transportation Services, a report from Heritage Preservation, support from 46 Metcalf, and opposition from 4 other properties on Metcalf. Ms. Kuhn?
Good morning, I'm here. It's Monica Kuhn. I'm the architect and agent for the owners, and my address is 12 Sackville Place.
Okay, we have a little opposition. Perhaps you could give us a presentation.
I will. Can you tell me who the opposition is from? I'm only aware of 42.
38 as well.
Oh, that's it? So
Yes.
two properties. Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that we have, through correspondence with transportation, which you have on file, the last variance about the parking space has been deleted.
Okay, just a minute. That's
Yes.
variance number 6.
Yes.
Okay.
The lot is an odd size, so right now, and since people have been parking back there, part of the parking space has been on city laneway property. So we couldn't maintain that, so we've moved the parking space to be wholly on private property. So that variance is deleted, and transportation has pulled back their disapproval. So anyway, to give you a quick description, my clients have just welcomed 2 twins into their family, and so they need a bit more space. Their current basement, only the front part of the house is excavated, and only that to about 6 feet high. So planning to do a basement underpin and extension out the back, actually under the deck about 4 feet to the back, but not above ground, that will be visible. And then also to extend the basement to the side, which is, you can see on the right-hand side, that angled hatch there. We're also then, the side addition is going to be only on the ground floor and in the basement. And then on the 3rd floor, we currently have a 1-bedroom sitting room upstairs, and then a big deck. And we're going to take part of that deck and put an extra bedroom and bathroom up there. I wonder if you could please pull up my neighborhood precedent photos from April 5th. I just want to walk you through what this actually looks like. Yep, great. Okay, so the first photograph is the back of the current house, and you can see the 2-story rear addition, and then the roof deck at the top. And then on the left-hand side is the portion that we want to fill in partially. And the second photograph, you can see that there's already a 7-foot high fence there towards the neighbor at number 42. And it's really wasted space, which we would like to use to bring light down and access down into the basement. Next photo. This is the roof deck right now on the 3rd floor. You can see that there's already, again, a tall fence on the left-hand side towards 38, and a tall fence on the right-hand side for at least half the deck. It's 42. Next photo. This is a view from our deck looking east towards the house, but it also shows what's happening at number 42. They also have a roof deck, and they have already a tall fence and a kind of greenhouse roof glass structure, which is going to be taller than our proposed addition. So any comments about views are a moot point, because they can't see out the side there anyway. And you can see the brick wall there is wall for the neighbor, the next neighbor over, and at 44, and he comes out even further. So I'll show you a photo of that in a minute. Next photo. So this is from our deck looking down to number 38. You can see that 38 already has a rear addition on their ground floor, which goes beyond all of the main rear walls of the adjacent neighbors. Because they have a smaller lot, they already have more GFA than we do currently. So something to remember. Next photo. This is looking down at 38, and they have quite a large ground floor addition off of the back wall currently as well. So they're also over GSA. Next.
Ms. Kuhn,
Yes.
your time is up, so if you could just wrap up, please.
Sure. Well, I might have to come back to these later then. I just wanted to, you'll see in these photos, if you've looked at them already, I've gone through the city's C of A precedent approvals, and I just wanted to make the case that there are many addresses that have at or beyond the variances that we're asking for with no change to the front of the houses. Okay.
All right, thank you. Ms. Westhoff and David and Gomez.
Just 1 minute. David, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Good morning. My name is David Gomez. I am the owner and occupant of 42 Metcalf, and I'm speaking on behalf of Carolina Westhoff, the co-owner, and our 2 children.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
So as I said, we're the owners of 42 Metcalf, the neighboring house to the north of 40 Metcalf. We've lived here for over 2.5 years alongside our young children, aged 2 and 6, and we wish to express our strong objections to the variances requested by 40 Metcalf. We believe that overall, when all the requested variances and the proposed plan are put together, the scope of the construction is massive and disproportionate to their specific lot size and house type, and the variances are not minor in nature. 40 Metcalf is a row house that lies in the middle of 2 other row homes, sharing walls and situated in very close proximity, as evidenced by the pictures Mrs. Kuhn just submitted. A very good example is picture 1 that you saw that shows that our side yards are already in very close proximity and our windows are already very close. We have already submitted a letter, but we wanted to add a couple of things. If you look at picture number 9 of the supporting material submitted by the owners of 40 Metcalf, it clearly demonstrates the existing already large shadow that 40 Metcalf casts on our house, 42 Metcalf. The picture that they submitted is on a bright and sunny day. So on cloud or gray winter days, our house is very dark and cold, particularly on the ground floor, which is composed by the kitchen and family room where our children spend most of their day. On the pictures we submitted, you can see that it is our playroom clearly, and you can see how dark it is already, even with the windows open in a sunny day. We truly depend on the side yards in between the homes, as well as the opening on 40 Metcalf's deck for sunlight and airflow. Because they're proposing such a tall and long third floor addition, in combination with building and completely eliminating their side yard with a high new ground floor wall, which is much higher than the current fence, our house will lose the scarce sunlight it receives on that side. We are on a row house and don't have windows on the opposite north wall. To our knowledge, and as evidenced by their submission, there doesn't seem to be tangible precedent for the proposed use of the side yard. Even if there were, we don't think such a variance is minor, and that it would have been approved in a row home with an already very tight distance between the main walls. We understand that because of the nature of the 3 adjoining homes at 38, 40, and 42, significant variations to one house will be surely felt on the other 2, especially if those variations arise from the middle house. There's risk of damage to our foundation walls, there's risk during construction in such tight quarters, there is risk to our property value when we lose positive qualities in our home on account of our neighbors gaining some. We are conscious of the impacts that one house has over the other. We understand also the need of space optimization, especially when kids come along. However, we truly believe these spaces can be optimized without such major variances or significant permanent impact to the adjoining homes. We are actually in the process of renovating our main home. However, we have done so without any permanent impact on our neighbors' properties and respecting current bylaws, which are there to protect the interest of the entire community equally. We wish to respectfully request that the committee takes into consideration the best interests of all neighbors of Metcalf Street in equal proportion. We don't see why a property that has already reached bylaw limits must be allowed to further push them in order to gain square footage, enjoyment of natural light and airflow, a great view from their bedroom and balcony, and a more generous layout at the expense of the loss of similar qualities for the neighboring properties. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, Miss Card. Oh, maybe it's Magos and Card.
Tina, you've been.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for hearing me. My name is Tina Card, and I'm the owner, partially with my husband, of 38 Metcalf Street. We are the property directly south and attached to the subject property. We also have 2 small children that live with us. I just wanted to note that the on number 42, the greenhouse on the rooftop does not go along the full balcony, so it doesn't. There's a small greenhouse up there. It's not the full length, which the 3rd story will be if it goes through. The general intent and the purpose of the official plans for these townhomes will not be maintained with the large scale of this renovation. I feel like it's not minor. Variance number 1, adding to the height of the building, the new proposed addition will go 39 inches above our current privacy fence, taking away completely the skylight from inside. This inside of our home is the area where me and my family spend the majority of our time, and we treasure it the most. It's actually the reason why we purchased the home, because of this space, and it will drastically change it by having the light taken away and the feeling of overcrowdedness. Variance number 3, this is a major variance. Adding 23% more to the permitted floor space completely changes the home and its intended use. I wanted to note that with the additions that were pictured in the supporting documents, on my property is 1.026 times the area of the lot, and with 42 Metcalf Street is 1.01 times the area of the lot. So yes, they do appear to be slightly above the 1 times, but not by very much. And I also want to note that that addition was there when I moved into the property. I wouldn't ask to push the limit. The neighbors are proposing to add 23% over the allowed space. And I just not sure why that should be allowed. They submitted some pictures of properties in the area which seem to have 3rd floor additions. I've taken a look at all of them, and I want to stress that these are not comparable properties, with the exception of 2. They are all either detached homes, semi-detached, or duplexes. The subject property is a townhouse or a row house, and particularly the subject property has a smaller lot and it's the middle unit. There is an exception where 24 Metcalf Street is a townhouse, and it looks like there is a 3rd floor addition put on that. I want to note that the lot is much larger, and when you do take a look at it, it does not fit in with the neighboring townhomes. The size of the addition on the 3rd floor is overbearing to the other homes. So if you take a look at that picture, it's quite drastic. So I want to thank you so much. We already do have one other note I want to make is that there is a laneway house going behind us. It's already very dense. And I think that's everything. Thank you very much for hearing my views.
All right, thank you. Ms. Kuhn?
Oh, Alex.
Yes, thank you. If you can just stay with this number 24. I'd just like to give you the numbers. It went to Committee of Adjustment at 2011. The GFA is 1.3. We're asking for 1.23. The side yard is 0. They've also filled in the side yard, and the depth is 21.1. It is a townhouse. There are houses attached to it on all sides. That's why I showed that row, because it's very similar to the ones on the street on the block above. 26, which is attached to this one, is at 1.22. It also has a side yard infill. Number 30, which I was at committee for with you a few months ago, we're at GFA was approved at 1.25. Rear wall height was at 9.78 versus 9.5, and rear yard or rear soft landscaping was also drastically reduced 44 Metcalf, which is the one, if you keep going, which is 2 over, that's the front of it right there on the right-hand side. Next one, please. You can see the square frame there. They're at 1.23. Their depth is 18.52. And at 1.23, they have a bigger lot. So the house is even bigger than what we're proposing. And then also 62 Metcalf, which is further up the street. I don't have photos of that. They're at 1.23. 63 is at 1.58 with a main wall height of 9.78. 83 Metcalf is at 1.23 with a main wall height of 9.87. 49 Salisbury, which I have a photo of, but don't worry about it, 1.29, side yard of 0 because they filled it in as well. 439 is at 1.58. And 441 Sackville is just around the corner, is at 1.75. And I have photos of that at the bottom. So I would argue to the neighbors that development of this kind is very common in Cabbagetown. We're in a heritage district. We are very sensitive to what's being seen from the street. Certainly, this is 441, which was at 1.75 further up the street there. So we're trying to stay over the existing house. We're not adding to the back. We're trying to build underneath to maximize the area so that the family can stay in the neighborhood, which we feel is important. We understand the neighbors' concerns with regards to construction. It's in our best interest to hire experienced contractors and consultants. We want to have this thing go smoothly as well. So we understand with regards to light, the neighbors had issues. We're to the north of 38, so I'm not sure how we're blocking light. I don't know what else to say. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, is the basement taken into account in the FSI?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Panel, any questions? Okay, take it into committee. Any comments or a motion? Peter?
I'll start with just a couple comments. I understand the concerns of the neighbors because, I mean, we have 2 objectors basically in the attached neighbors, but I think that we have to keep the neighborhood kind of pattern of development in mind. And I think that the applicant has shown a good set of examples of similar types of projects on similar types of lots. I think that the impacts of what's being proposed are relatively minor. I think remaining within the 3rd floor addition remaining within the footprint of the house and the limiting the 1st floor without extending out to the back any further. I think that that's a reasonable solution that's being looked at, and particularly with the existing fence, I think the impacts on the neighbors will be relatively minor. So I'm supportive of this application.
Joanne?
I would second my colleague's comments. Certainly, I recognize that it is a change. I think that the proposal in limiting the filling in of the side yard, limiting it to the 1st floor, does lessen the impact on 38. No one's suggesting there's going to be no impact from development, but I think what's being proposed is reasonable. I think that the massing being behind the roof line doesn't impact the character and maintains the character of the neighborhood. And I think all things being considered, what's being requested in the context of the neighborhood is reasonable, and I can support the application, but I would want to tie it to plans with respect to the depth variance. So there's no question that that depth is related to the basement.
Thank you. Aaron, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any additional comments.
Okay, so do we have a motion? Peter?
I'll bring a motion to approve the application as amended. So that's with variance 6 deleted and subject to the heritage condition and tying the approval to the site plan work, Joanne? So I think site plan's fine.
All right, we have a seconder. Joanne, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Number 4, 49 Palmer Avenue. Purpose of the application is to construct a detached garage at the rear of the existing 2-story detached dwelling. With this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant. We have correspondence and concern or interest from 2 Roosevelt Avenue and opposition from 53 Palmer Avenue. Nefise Zangjiabadi.
Nafisa, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead. Nafisa, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead. Mr. Chair, she's been unmuted, but maybe we'll try the phone number that she registered with. No, Mr. Chair, it looks like they're not. Oh.
Do we have the applicant?
Yes.
Okay.
Nafisa, you have some sort. You have 2 electronics that are playing the hearing at the same time, and there's a lot of feedback. So
Yeah, I've logged out and logged in, so most probably the link is working now. If I hang up.
Sure.
Okay. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can we have
Okay.
your name and your address, please?
My name is Nafisa Zangiabadi. Address is 30 Apple Orchard Path.
Okay, can we have your submission?
Yes, the application is to construct a detached garage at the back of a property that was already proposed in the original drawings a while ago, like years ago, but the owner never built it. So they decided to build it now. And as you can see on the drawings, there a driveway has been also proposed there as the provision for future garage. So they decided to put the garage back, and we are actually, by building this garage, we are only asking for 1 variance for coverage because the area of the garage will be added to the footprint of the building. We try to avoid all other variances as for the garage itself. It complies with the 10% area of the ancillary structure, also with the setback and the height. So we are basically just asking for a 5% increase in the overall coverage of the lot. I believe this variance is minor in nature, and I am happy to answer any questions if you have.
All right, panel, any questions? No, okay. Svetlana Metzger?
Hello?
Yes.
Svetlana, you have more than 1 electronic.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
playing the hearing.
I'll shut it off. Yeah, so
we have a very serious concern with this application. We strongly object
All right,
because,
can we have, Ms. Metzger, can we have your name and address for the record, please?
yes, Svetlana Metzger, 53 Palmer Avenue, immediately adjacent the 49 Palmer Avenue property, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my husband, and our 2 little kids. So our major concerns around this application in its current state revolve around the fact that the application does not accurately reflect the state of the property currently. It's micro-focused on allowing this building of the garage to proceed by ignoring a lot of other non-compliance issues with the property. So basically, they've used the survey from the 70s, which is not accurate. I sense, that is a markup of their drawings to reflect, as you can see, there's very little permeable surface on the property. There's no drainage whatsoever, not only for surface water, also for the roofing water, because the roofing water is being drained onto their concrete pavement and directed onto our property. This was the case even when we purchased our property. As such, we've kind of been grandfathered into this situation, but it was causing a lot of issues for our property. And because of that, we've had to invest in a very major drainage system on our side so we can absorb the surface and the roofing water coming from 49 Palmer Avenue. And the reason I am bringing this up is because the only permeable surface on that property is where they're proposing to put that garage. So there is no holistic plan to look at the entire state of the property and all of the non-compliance issues to bylaws and codes. And as such, we find this to be a major disturbance that's going to have a major impact, because the little 10% of permeable surface they have, which is currently non-compliant with bylaws, is going to be taken by constructing this garage. In addition to that, this will eliminate the only surface area that they have to absorb water. In addition to that, we're very concerned about the height of the structure for several reasons. One of them being that this is southeast exposure. It's where we get all of our sunlight, both for the residents as well as for our backyard. And building something that is 4 meters high would block any sunlight that we have into our bedroom, into our living room, into our kitchen, and into our backyard. And so that will really affect the enjoyment of our home as well as our backyard, where our backyard is a lot of green space, so we can absorb all the water that is coming from 49 Palmer Avenue. So this is going to kill all the vegetation we have there, and enjoyment of our home. And finally, this is a neighborhood where 50% of the residences are bungalows. Not a single residence has a detached garage, and not only building this detached garage is going to change or not fit the character of the neighborhood, but the height of 4 meters, that's the height of a bungalow. So we're going to be having a bungalow high garage in the backyard that is as big as half of the residences in the neighborhood. It just doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood. So I am just hoping that if this project is to proceed in some shape or form, there's going to be major revisions that are going to take into account the systemic examination of the state of the property, all of the different non-compliances of its current state, and there will be solutions, because we're not just focused on can we build the garage or not, but there has to be a plan for how this entire lot is going to meet all the different bylaws, all the different codes, instead of further, because building this is just going to further derail the alignment from bylaws and code. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Mary Scaramozino.
Mary, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mary Scaramozino. I'm at 49 Homer Avenue, just south of the property at 47 Homer. I just and my concern is that the height, because we recently had a big sliding door at the back of our house, and it brings in a lot of light. My concern is the height. And again, as the previous neighbor said, that it will affect the integrity of the neighborhood, and there is no large garage, in the neighborhood. So that's my concern. For me, it's more about the light coming into our property. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Scaramozino, I just want to get straight. Your address is 47 Palmer Avenue?
Yes.
Okay, because you said 49, I thought. Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Reyes?
Cesar,
Hi, can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Can we have your name
Hi.
and address, please?
Hi, yes, my name is Cesar Reyes. On behalf of my wife and our soon-to-be newborn, we are the residents and owners of 2 Rosevere. As you can see in the photo that's being shown right now on the slide, that house directly to the east or just adjacent to where it would be built is our house. So our 2 main concerns, one is that if they do put the garage and pave the permeable side there where usually rainwater would go to, we'd just like to ensure that the water runoff doesn't come into our property and that it would be directed away from our property and directed away from, of course, like the other I guess residents as well, and into the street or whatever the bylaws indicate. But we just wanted to strongly express this concern and to make sure that none of the rainwater goes into our property. Second of all, we just wanted to express some concern on the construction hours and just wanted to make sure that they are, I guess, within the bounds of whatever the law requires. And it's just because, with a newborn coming soon and our actual bedroom window will be about 7 feet away from where.
Mr. Reyes, we have no jurisdiction as a committee over construction hours, or anything of that sort. We just deal with variances.
Okay. I'll take it up with the residents.
All right, thank you. All right.
So in that case, it's just sorry, just to wrap it up, in that case, it's just really the construction and the rainwater runoff.
Thank you. Ms. Zangiabadi?
Yes.
Do you have anything to say regarding the comments of the opposition?
Yes. I would like to clarify that with our new proposal, the existing shed that you're seeing in the picture and the pavement all gonna go. So the entire rear yard would be grass, as we clarified with the planning and stuff, and we sent in the drawing clearly states the grass area. And as you can see, we don't have any landscaping variance. So except for the driveway and the garage, having the rest of the area as grass, we're complying with more than what is permitted. Permitted is 50%, and we're going to be at 59, almost 60% grass. So we tried to reach our neighbors to let them know about this, but we couldn't get a hold of them. My client tried a few times. But that is the case. The entire back are going to be grass except for the garage and the driveway, and we do comply with the landscaping. Drainage issue, obviously is not a matter of committee, it's going to be addressed during the building permit, and we make sure that the water going to be away from their property for sure. And also there were some comments about the height, but the height that we are proposing is what bylaw permits, like 4 meters. We're not going over permitted height, and there's no variance for height. And as I said, basically there is no variance for the garage itself as an ancillary structure in terms of height, setback, area. And the only variance we have is the coverage because it's going to be added to the footprint of the building. So is there any other questions? And I should add that we sent the revised drawings to planning staff for the landscaping of the rear, showing that the entire rear yard going to be grass.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel, any comments, or do we have a motion? Aaron?
Just a quick question is, would you consider having the driveway paved with permeable paving?
We can, yes.
Any other questions, Joanne?
Just wondered if there's any other examples of lot coverage at 40% in the immediate area.
I haven't looked into that, to be honest. The houses, most of them are similar size of ours, maybe just a little bit more. So I would say the coverage of the house is like maximum going to be about like 35, 36%.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Do we have a motion? Aaron?
So after reviewing the information from both sides, I think this application is very...
So Aaron, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Perhaps you could speak into the mic a little more?
Okay, sorry. Yes, so after reviewing the materials in front of us, I think the subject application is very minor. I would like to approve it subject to applying the permeable paving as a condition.
Right. You second that, Peter? All right, all in favor? Have your approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move on to number 6, 96 Witchwood Park. I've already introduced it, so I think we can go directly to Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
All right. So we already have your name and address, sir. Perhaps we can have your submissions with respect to the, brief submissions with respect to the variances.
Certainly. The structure that you're looking at actually contains 2 municipal addresses. There's 94 and 96 Witchwood. The second and third floor is where my client and their children live, and that is 96 Witchwood. The ground and basement is where the grandparents of those children live, and that is 94 Witchwood. So this is a multi-generational home, and there is a shared garage at the back that you're seeing there on the site plan.
So Mr. O'Keefe, I just wanted to ask you, is this one building? It's in that the 2 different addresses are just an anomaly left over from when Witchwood Park was developed?
This building was purpose-built as 2 separate municipal addresses, contained within the same structure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the proposal there is you see that garage at the back. That's the shared garage. Currently, the roof above that garage is a roof deck. So our proposal is to enclose the area above that garage, making it into a sunroom that can be largely open during warmer months, but still enjoy sunlight during the colder months. There is a modest platform adjacent to the sunroom that would be proposed to provide true outdoor space. The platform is designed in such a way that allows for sunlight at the ground floor outdoor space that is enjoyed by 94 Witchwood. And if you could scroll down to the very last drawing, there's a rendering there. You can just get a better idea of what this would look like. That platform that is, do you have the rendering is one more further down? There you go. There you go. So you can see the sunroom and the platform. So with regards to the variances and precedent, analysis of C of A decisions for similar projects in a 500-meter radius form a picture of the existing character of the neighborhood. A total of 138 projects with similar variances were identified, and 127 of those were approved. For floor space index, we've identified 11 projects in the immediate vicinity that were granted a floor space index equal to or greater than the amount that's requested here. And I do have a graph, the floor space index graph, if you just wanted to bring that up. You can sort of scroll it down there. You can see that graph. Our project's the one identified in red. Oh, there you go. And the ones to the left of it there, those were the ones granted equal to or greater than our request. Platform area. Currently, the outdoor space enjoyed by 96 Witchwood is the roof deck, and you can just go back to the rendering. I think it's a good image to just keep on the screen. By enclosing this space to create the new sunroom, we wanted to reestablish a small amount of outdoor space in the form of the proposed platform. The amount of space proposed is modest and comparable with small urban outdoor areas that we see throughout the city. Rear yard setback. Due to the fact that there's a ravine and a pond across the street to the front of the property, the houses on this stretch of Witchwood Park needed to be sited toward the back of the property. So with the house set so far back, a portion of the garage is already within the rear yard setback. So this project triggers the need for that variance. Important to note that the proposed construction would not project any further back than the garage currently does. Side yard setback, you can see to the right of that image, the garage is sited close to the north lot line. So building over the footprint of the garage triggers the need for this variance. Platform rear encroachment, similar to the rear yard setback variance, the topography forces the house to be sited toward the back, and the proposed platform would encroach into the rear yard setback. However, important to note that the platform would not project any further back, as you can see, than the garage currently does. We have support from 5 of the neighbors, and those letters of support are on file: 59 Burnside, 90, 92, 94, and 100 Witchwood Park. There's a letter from the neighbor immediately to the north, 98 Witchwood, which is neither in support or disapproval or objection. They're just simply asking if we can keep the pruning of the tree that's near the proposed construction to a bare minimum, and of course we have no problem with that. They had also asked for a shadow study to be done. Unfortunately, that request came in just at the 11th hour, so I wasn't able to submit a shadow study. However, had I been able to do that, I'm confident that such a shadow study would have allayed their fears that there'd be only minimal change to the amount of sunlight that they receive. Lastly, we submit that the proposed construction meets the 4 tests, and put it to the committee for their consideration.
Thank you. Panel, any questions? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can we just have Mr. O'Brien confirm that variance number 2 is being revised?
That's correct. So variance number 2, the floor space index stays at 0.69. However, the square meters goes up to 419.4 square meters. There is a revised zoning review done by our zoning examiner that is has been submitted. So you have that right from Toronto zoning. Yeah, there it is. You can see there, 419.4 square meters.
Right, thank you. So, panel, any questions, comments, or do we have a motion? Yes, Peter.
I'm happy to bring a motion. I think that I think this is a very reasonable request of the applicant, and I think not much of a material change as to what's there now. And I think the lots in the area, and especially particularly this one, are large and I think provide a lot of breathing room for this type of addition. I see no negative impacts coming from this, and so I move to approve the application as amended and subject to the heritage condition.
And as amended, right? Joanne, you second that motion? Yeah, okay. I used to live on Burnside, right behind this property. It's beautiful. Witchwood Park is a magnificent place, so this will add to the beauty of the park. So, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 7. 726 Lansdowne Avenue. The purpose of the application to alter the existing 2-story detached dwelling by constructing a second-story side addition with a side staircase from the ground floor. The rear 1.5-story detached garage will also be converted into a dwelling unit by extending the second story and constructing a second-story deck. The lot will have a total of 3 dwellings. And we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence and support from 2 addresses on Lansdowne, 3 addresses on Lansdowne and 1 on Ward Street in opposition from 726. Well, I don't know what this says. It says 726 Lansdowne in opposition. Maybe it's a tenant, I'm not sure. So, Mr. Lee?
Chair, I think it's 728
Oh, okay.
and 732.
Yeah, okay, typo. Mr. Lee, please.
Yes, Edward Lee here, representing the owner.
Yes, can we have your address, sir?
Yes, my address, 6 Argyle Street, Toronto.
Okay, there's no opposition. Panel, do you think we need a presentation? No presentation. Okay, any questions or comments for Mr. Lee? Joanne?
I'd just like Mr. Lee to speak to us about whether or not there's other examples of houses behind houses. This is not on a laneway. So is there any other examples in the immediate neighborhood of what you are requesting with the same, that have the same zoning restrictions?
There are no examples of this in the immediate area. I did reach out to planning staff as soon as we received the zoning notice for this to get their, I guess, pre-review of our application, and they had no concerns about it. And obviously, there's no planning report. I spoke to the zoning examiner as well about the difference between a laneway suite proposal. And obviously, this is not a laneway suite proposal, but by maintaining the access from the street to the rear building, planning staff, transportation staff didn't have any concerns about the proposal.
Yeah.
It's an unusual garage structure that's been there since the original building was built. It's a rare 2-story garage structure that can, as built, accommodate a 2-story dwelling unit. And we campaigned the neighbors to make sure that everybody was supportive of this. The rear neighbor at 55 Ward Street understands that this structure is more than what's needed for a garage, and understands that the owner of the building will actually be living on the lot with his daughter, and appreciates that, we're adding this extra dwelling unit, with minimal construction impact to the neighbors. If this were a new construction 2-story dwelling unit at the rear, I'd understand if the neighbors had concerns. But this is an existing structure. I worked hard with the owner to try to come up with a proposal that increased the amount of residential use and area on his lot with minimal cost. I mean, relative to if this were a full new construction development proposal, and the impact it would have on all of the adjacent neighbors. I feel that from a construction perspective, this is a minor proposal, and it does satisfy the needs of the owner from a use perspective.
So last month, we had an applicant, Peter will remember, we had an application for a garage with some storage unit above it attached to another dwelling, coach house type thing, but it was again 2 dwelling units on a property. It was not a laneway suite, and of course we don't have garden suites bylaw yet, but again the planning department made no comment on it, and they objected to it on other grounds. So it's beyond me how this is not objectionable, but I think because it's like Mr. Lee says, it's an existing building and it's been there a long time, and just converting it to dwelling unit at this time, planning doesn't seem to have any problem with it. So if they don't have a problem, I don't have a problem either. Aaron?
I just want to add that 722 Lansdowne is also like a one-piece building from the front to the back. So I don't think and plus, like you said, the second house at the lot is in existing condition. I think if you look at it from a bigger scale, I don't see there's any major implication or changes to the context of the site. So I would agree to approve this application.
I would just note they are adding a second story. It's not just using the built form and converting it to residential. So, whether that changes things.
Peter, do you have any comments?
Yes, I know this site well, and I think that I think the changes to the site are minor, and would note that previously it was a garage, like an auto repair. So I think in terms of that, this use converting to residential from one that's a bit more noxious, I think is a benefit for the neighborhood. And as Aaron said, I think the adjacent building was a church and was a factory before that, I think. But on Lansdowne in this area, there are a lot of examples of large building coverages that have transformed over the years. So yeah, I support it as well. So I'm happy to just put forward a motion for approval with no conditions.
Okay. Seconder? Aaron, all in favor? Right. You oppose it, Joanne? Okay. 3 in favor, 1 against. You have your approval, sir. Thank you. Next item, number 8, 390 Armadale. Purpose of the application to alter the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2-story addition and a rear ground floor deck. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. And we have support from 388 Armadale and opposition from 392 Armadale. Mr. Smith.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Jay Smith. I'm the agent for the owners at 390 Armadale Avenue.
Okay. And your address, sir?
2814 Hollington Crescent, Mississauga.
Okay. And we have some opposition, so could we have a brief presentation, please?
Yes, we are proposing for a rear two-story addition. We have put a master suite on the second floor at the rear of the home. The ground floor will be used as a music room, being that all three occupants of the house, the two owners and their son, are all musicians. The space will be used for recording and practicing for their careers. We have kept the massing, I believe, minor. We are well under the allowable height, which was 10 meters, and we're sitting on the top of the second floor at 6.82 meters. The second floor has also been set back in order to reduce the massing and the effect on any neighbors. Again, flat roof design to reduce the massing. And I believe we have, one variance, which I think is minor. We have no, length, setbacks, heights, no other variance in the backyard landscaping complies. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What is the existing floor space index?
0.69 is existing.
All right, thank you. Panel, any questions, or do we have comments or a motion? Joanne?
Thank you. Having reviewed all the materials on file and the analysis that was provided by the applicant in the submissions, and the design in terms of stepping back at the second story at the rear, and that we only have one variance before us, I think what's being proposed is appropriate and can be considered minor. And if my colleagues have no further comment.
Sorry, Joanne, through you, Mr. Chair, we do have someone on the line in opposition that would like to speak.
Oh, pardon me. Yes, I forgot. Okay. I'm sorry. Let's go, Mr. Mary Rose and Anna Chaparak.
Mary, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead. No, Mary.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Can we have your name and your address?
Yes.
And you have my apologies.
Mary Rose, yes, I'm Mary Rose Cheparak at 392 Armadale, and we'd like to object to the variances requested at 390 Armadale. Thank you for having a voice before the judgment. The variances requested individually and cumulatively do not meet the four tests of the Planning Act and should not be granted.
Well,
The focus
just a minute, Ms. Cheparak.
on the impact.
There's only
Yes.
one. There's only one variance.
Yeah, okay, sorry, variance.
Okay.
The variance requested is not minor. 51% is not minor. A 51.38% increase in the footprint is out of scale for the backyard and not in keeping with the character of the established neighborhood. This proposed addition is in conflict with the bylaw governing the maximum allowable FSI. Already at the maximum, it will exceed the maximum by 25.54%, setting a negative precedent. That is not minor. Also, it is removing valuable soft landscaping by 50%. And this is, we were told, to reposition a piano that is already in the home, and the applicant was advised by the architect that for resale, they should extend to the second floor. Adding a second story will raise the cost of purchasing and owning this property in future. New buyers will face higher heating, cooling costs, mortgage costs, higher taxes. The increase in floor space will make this home unaffordable for young families and new buyers.
So, Ms. Cheparak, Ms. Cheparak, we're not concerned about future buyers. We're concerned about the impact this renovation has on you and your property.
Okay, well, that's not the goal of city planners. Anyway, we are setting a negative precedent. In the covering letter, the applicant's FSI variance request of 0.87 increase is the largest of 5 homes listed. The competition continues. Who will outdistance their neighbor? The one letter of support comes from 388 Armadale Avenue, whose previous owners extended the property in height and length significantly, and then quickly sold the property. The current owners of 388 are not far behind the proposed addition in length, and with a driveway separating them, their light will not be obstructed. Only those people who are sandwiched between long, tall additions suffer greatly from losing access to light and losing property values. Repositioning a piano currently in the home does not justify this kind of expansion. The variance also speaks to the light and character of the neighborhood. Irrespective of whether zoning bylaw or intensification policies now permit a larger structure, the character of the neighborhood is deserving of protection. Houses in Bloor West are built in the American craftsman style, low-pitched roofs, deep overhanging eaves, and shingle roofs. Looking at policy 4.1.5, the official plan requires prevailing heights and density respected and reinforced. A box-like structure with a flat roof is not in keeping with the character and style or design of the building period. Property values will be affected. Residents should be able to rely on a municipality's former zoning policies to protect the character of their neighborhood and their home's property values. It is a breach of trust when they are diminished. Also, increasing the FSI beyond the allowable limits to accommodate a piano, as we were told, with a few something else, does not justify adverse effects for the neighbors. There are only 2 occupants the majority of time. The piano is already in the home. There's no reason for an outscale 2-story addition. The question should always be asked whether need can be shown for an increase in floor space. And although it's not one of the standard 4 statutory test variances have been used where the applicant is doing so for convenience or profit. Need is a valid issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Smith?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I respectfully again submit that we have kept the massing down. We have more than, 5 instances of precedents in the area for increased FSI. These are only the homes listed on Armadale. 61 Harshaw recently was approved at 0.98. And we have no length variance. In fact, we're under the length. We're at 15.27 on the ground floor, and there's only a 4.19 meter increase on the second floor. Again, the height, 6.82, we could go up to 10 meters. The flat roof was done to protect light getting to the neighboring property instead of a peaked roof that would add more shade. It's, again, I believe minor in nature. I believe it's in keeping with decisions in the neighborhood and the current trend. And, whether it's to move a piano, which it's not specifically to move a piano, it's for the occupants to be able to work from home and, continue the music that they, make a living from. So again, I submit, I believe it's minor in nature. Thank you.
All right. Any questions, panel? Okay. Any comments, or do we have a motion? Joanne?
Thank you. In taking into consideration the comments from the neighbor, I do appreciate the comments they've made. The current home does have a rear bump out at the first story. It's acknowledged that that is being deeper, and a second story is being added to the rear with a step back. The committee does have, the house is not longer than it is permitted to be, not higher than it is permitted to be. Yes, there is a request for an increase in the FSI. In my opinion, based on the information that's been presented to the committee, the FSI request is not unreasonable. The front of the house is not changing in design, so the character of the neighborhood, I think, is maintained. And in my opinion, I believe that the application before us meets the 4 tests And I would be prepared to move a motion to approve the application with no conditions.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Aaron, thank you. All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you very much. Number 9, 678 Mortimer Avenue. The purpose of this application is to construct a new 2-story ancillary building containing a garage in the 1st story and a laneway suite in the 2nd story in the rear yard of the existing detached dwelling. We have material submitted by the applicant, a report from community planning, and a 10-signature petition in support. Reiner Hoye.
Present.
Okay, can we have your name and your address for the record, sir?
Reiner Hoyer, 1 Young Street, Suite 1800. I'm the agent for the applicant.
Yeah.
To address the staff report, we have large support from the neighborhood, and I'd like to point out that the city just recently issued a permit for a laneway house in the same lane about 10 houses away. I sent some pictures in to show it at 41 Dunkirk Road. The issue that triggers our variances is the small 1-story rear addition for the basement walkout cover. The actual distance to the main house is more than 10 meters. If the rear addition for that basement walkout would have been cut back by 1.2 meters, there would be no variances. We made some adjustment to the landscape area, so the variance for the landscaping can be removed. We no longer require that.
That's variance number 1?
Yes.
Okay.
So this being kind of a unique situation, like the measurement being taken from that walkout cover triggers the variances, which reduces the height to 4 meters from the 6 meters, which would not have a variance, and also triggers the variance of the not meeting the 7.5 meter setback. So we would have the option to cut back the enclosure on the walkout and not have to be here asking for variance, but the owner would like to keep the cover for the walkout in regards to build the laneway house. So we asked the committee to consider this unique special situation to grant us the variance for the setback and the height.
Any questions, panel? All right. Joanne?
Your plans don't specifically note it, but you also are requesting a variance for the penetration of the angular plane at the rear. To what degree
there
is
would
that?
be there would be no variances if it wasn't for that intrusion of the walkout for the setback.
So there would be no angular plane variances either?
No. If we were in compliance with the 7.5 meter, then we don't have the angular or the height.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion? Peter?
Yes, I'm glad to see that. I did have concerns about the soft rear yard landscaping, so I'm glad that that's been amended. And I do appreciate the agent's description of the separation between the main house versus the small 1-story addition in the back. And I think taking that into consideration, I think it does get to the spirit of the laneway suites bylaw, and I do think this is a reasonable request. And I think that the impacts of it in terms of the separation from the main house are really lessened because of the limited extent of that first floor pick out. So I would move a motion to approve the application as amended.
All right, seconder. Joanne, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Number 10, 72 Northumberland. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story townhouse dwelling by constructing a partial third-story addition. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant in support from Northumberland, property in Northumberland, on Dovercourt, and on Delaware. Natalia Bienkowska.
Yes, I'm here. Morning.
Okay, can we have your name and your address for the record, please?
My name is Natalia Bienkowska. My address is 258 Bain Avenue in Toronto, and I'm the designer and the registered agent for the applicant.
Okay, I don't think we need a presentation from you. This looks very straightforward. Panel, do you have any questions? Yes, Joanne?
Just one quickly. I recognize that you're converting the existing attic to habitable space and doing an extension, and the existing FSI is 0.99. In the examples that you provided, I didn't see anything, unless I missed it, of examples at the FSI that you're proposing. Could you just tell me a little bit about that, please?
So I think the reason why our proposed FSI looks higher than the examples we provided is that this lot we're talking about is extraordinarily short. Like it's narrow, which is always the case with townhouses in Toronto, but this one is also very, very short. If you take a look at the location map, like even a few numbers down on Northumberland, there are lots that are approximately 50% longer than this one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so like looking at 64, 62, these are much longer lots.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any comments, or do we have a motion? Joanne?
Thank you. I appreciate just that clarification and submission on the FSI. I think in whole, as I mentioned in my question, this is really converting existing attic space to habitable space with just a small bump out or extension. I believe this is appropriate and meets the 4 tests, and I would move a motion to approve the application.
Right. Peter, second. All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Number 11, 1296 Pape Avenue. Purpose of the application to alter the existing one-story detached dwelling by constructing a complete second-story addition. And we have, the material we have is material submitted by the applicant. Mr. Bongers?
Yes.
Can we have your name and your address for the record, please?
Rick Bongers, 75 Redwood Avenue.
Okay. Panel, do we have any need for presentation? No, we don't need your presentation. Mr. Bonger, do you have anything to say before we take it into committee?
No, I just feel the application represents a suitable development of the property and is appropriate for the neighborhood.
Thank you. Panel, any comments? Do we have a motion? Joanne?
Thank you. I think what's being proposed is indeed reasonable, minor, appropriate. It certainly would not be out of character with the development that is occurring in the neighborhood. And if my colleagues have no further comment, I would move a motion to approve the application with no conditions.
seconder. Aaron, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Number 12.
Thank you.
Number 12, 35 Thome Crescent. Purpose of the application to alter the existing three-story detached dwelling by constructing a first-story rear addition and a third-story rear addition. And with this, we have materials submitted by the applicant, 10 form letters in support and opposition from 37 Thome Crescent. Mr. McLaren.
Just 1 minute, Mr. Chair. Oliver, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hi. This is Oliver McLaren, and my address is 35 Thome Crescent.
Okay. We have some opposition, so could we have a brief presentation, sir?
Sure. So basically, the proposal is for a one-story addition on the rear of the property, and for an extension of the third floor on the existing footprint. It's kind of like an extension of the dormers. It's only 40% coverage, but since we don't have a roof all the way around, it's considered a sidewall height variance. The overall height variance is as exists. It's a 10 centimeter height above the allowed limit. So basically, we're just extending the existing roof back.
Okay. All right, panel, any questions? Okay, let's move on to Mr. and Mrs. McAdory.
Michelle,
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can we have your name and address, please?
Hi, my name is Arlen McAdory. I reside at 37 Thome Crescent with my mother, Michelle McAdory, where we have resided for 7 years. Our house is to the immediate north side of 35 Thome Crescent, where the variances are proposed.
All right, can we?
I have two concerns. My first and primary concern relates to the extension at the rear of 35 Thome Crescent. I have no issue with them wanting to remove and replace the existing one-story addition. My concern is with the deck that is proposed that would sit on top of that single-story addition. We have our kitchen located at the rear of our residence on the top floor. Our primary or our only southern exposure is a window facing south that provides all of our natural light in our kitchen where we work. By adding a deck onto the top of the single-story addition, it would completely block our main window in our kitchen and therefore eliminate our natural light, along with completely eliminating our view to the south, which is, like I said, the only source of this view and natural light in the kitchen. The second concern I have is with regards to the changing of the roof from a peaked roof to a nearly flat roof. Normally having a peaked roof would reduce the visibility, but in this case, having the peaked roof the way it is helpful because the angle of the peak of the roof at the back provides us with visibility. If it was a flat roof, that would be higher than it currently is, as I'm looking at the drawings right now, that would further reduce our visibility. And additionally, no shadow study has been performed to my knowledge, and I'm concerned about the effects further to our natural light.
All right, thank you. Mr. McLaren?
Yeah, I think regarding the overall length of the house, we're not asking for any variances regarding the length, and the roof deck on the addition wasn't one of the variances that was a concern. Regarding the shadowing, there's quite a step in the houses. The house to the north of the property kind of steps back over 3 meters. So when you're considering the path of the sunlight, By the time you have good access to sun in the morning through the day, and then when you get around to the western light in the afternoon, the existing house would have blocked that light anyway. So I don't think there's any difference really in the shadowing of the adjacent property. And also the space between the houses is as existing. You know, that would have been a kind of a narrow space to begin with. So I would say that we're kind of trying to keep it as modest as possible by staying on the existing footprint and by not going too long.
All right, thank you. Panel, any questions? No? Okay, any comments, or do we have a motion? Peter?
I understand the concerns of the neighbor, but I think particularly around the kitchen window, but as the agent or the applicant has stated, that rear deck is not related to the variances being requested. I think what's being proposed is reasonable and I think sensitive, particularly with the way they're handling the third floor, basically large dormer approach, and the very small addition on the first floor. So I think the impacts of them are minor, and I think the variances themselves are minor as well. So I would move approval with no conditions.
We have a seconder. Yes, Joanne. All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Number 13, 325 Kenilworth Avenue. The purpose of the application is to alter the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling by constructing a 3rd-story addition and a 1-story rear addition. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and a report from Urban Forestry. Aisling McWilliam.
Hi, yes, my name is Aisling McWilliam, and I have my husband here, Chun Lo. We are both the owners of 325 Kenilworth, and we're representing ourselves.
Okay.
I can go ahead?
Well, let me just check with the panel to see if we need a presentation. Panel, do we need a presentation? I don't think we do. Ms. McWilliam, do you want to add anything before we take it into committee?
No, just that we are staying within our footprint. We're just creating more space for moving our parents in and future family planning and our son and more children. And we will keep in mind soft landscaping and keeping within the character of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. All right, panel, any questions or comments, or do we have a motion? Joanne?
Thank you. I think what's being proposed is going to result in a built form that's not out of character with this neighborhood. There are some other large homes in this area. I think that what's being presented is minor and appropriate. I believe it meets the 4 tests, and I would like to move a motion to approve the application subject to forestry condition number 2.
Seconder? Peter, all in favor? Have your approval. Thank you. Number 14, 16 Tacoma Avenue. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 3-story detached dwelling by constructing a 2nd-story addition with a 3rd-story terrace above, a ground floor deck, and to install a front yard parking pad. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from transportation, support from 42A Shaftesbury Avenue, opposition from 14 Tacoma and 154 Wolfrey Avenue. Mr. Gain.
Good morning. I'm Trevor Gain. I'm the agent here on behalf of the owners. I am at 10 Celebrity Place in Markham.
Okay, can we have some opposition? Can we have your presentation, please?
Certainly. At the very high level, this is a very, very simple application. We're just looking to do a 2nd floor addition over the top of a one-story bump out at this existing home. There's an existing three-story house, and we'll have access from that existing third floor on top of this second floor addition. However, once you overlay the zoning bylaw, given the lot configuration, everything goes askew. If I can get my covering letter presentation up, I can explain sort of the definitions of the lot line. So page 3, this colored diagram is the site plan submitted on file, and what it's doing is just explaining how the variances are generated. So Tacoma, north is up, Tacoma tees into this property from the bottom up, and there's a mirror property on the opposite side of this to the right. So what happens, according to the zoning bylaw, is the definition of your front property line is whatever faces the street. So along the south property line, there's about a 6-meter strip, which is considered our front property line. And then by definition, the rear property line is directly across from that. So the entire north property line is our rear lot line, which means our property is only just over, I think, 5.5 meters deep. And then after that, all the green lines are representing what is considered the side property line. So the east, the west, the remainder of the south are all sides. So it's kind of a really an abnormal such situation, which is really just based on definitions. And as a result, we get 6 variances that are relating to setback and separations and whatnot, because we're normally, if you kind of ignore the zoning definitions, you know, obviously our rear lot line should be the west, but now it's the north, and we're building, you know, 0.08 or 0.02, whatever the variance is, from that lot line, which is just an extension of those existing walls. With that, the owners have purchased an electric vehicle, so we're looking to put a parking pad in the front, which just kind of drives straight up Tacoma and right in. Again, it's part of the front yard setback, just given that definition. You can see the 1.8 meter setback. That's the required front yard, so our spot kind of dips into that a little bit. And other than that, we think it's a fairly typical rear addition. I would like to point out further on in this covering letter, which wasn't mentioned, but because of this abnormal in the number of variances just based on definition, the owner went around and just basically talked to everybody that she could see, got signature support from everybody on the street and anybody who could practically see our lot from around the neighborhood. I think there's 57 signatures in support for this application. She made sure that there was no misunderstanding, kind of explained everything. Everybody was overwhelmingly supported on the street and was actually quite happy to have a car off the street, given that there's probably only about maybe 10 or so street spaces along the west side of Tacoma. Other than that, I think hopefully it's a clear application for you, and we seek your approval.
So, Mr. Gain, from the notes that I have and the material that we have, we didn't get a petition with 57 neighbors in support.
Yeah, if you could just continue to scroll down on my covering letter. Keep going. There they all are.
Oh, okay.
And then the green, the page just before that, I just kind of highlighted all the green are neighbors that are in support. We have our objector right beside us, and the red is the subject property.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Ormsby?
Just 1 minute, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we tried calling and emailing Michael Ormsby, but it looks like they aren't here with us.
You what?
We tried emailing and calling Michael Ormsby, but it looks like they aren't here with us.
Okay, can we go to Mr. Canetta?
Sure. Philip, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
We're fine.
Can you hear me?
Can we have your name and your address, please?
Philip Panetta, 14 Tacoma Avenue.
Okay, can we have your submissions, please?
My problem with the parking on the front pad is there's a fire hydrant immediately adjacent to entering their property line. Now, being a result of that, the fire department cannot take time to remove their vehicle had it be overnight fire because they happen to be on their charger. The fire department has disallowed this for 24 years that I know of personally. I have lived at this address for 63 years. It is a real safety issue. There is also a walk-through right-of-way that has been part of their property for 100 years that they are trying to also remove. Now, Donald at their the Mirror House tried to close the gate off about 15 years ago, and the fire department instructed them not to, that they had to leave it as an opening. Now, their bone of contention, the people they bought it from, the house at 16, has tried for 24 years to get front yard parking. It was disallowed for this safety issue alone. I don't have any real problems with any of the other variances other than the front yard parking. I would like to know that the fire department can access to save my wife and I are both handicapped. And I know a lot of the houses in the neighborhood have little children. I would like to know that the fire department is accessible to each and every person. And I don't particularly want them to have to remove a vehicle to get there. And I've talked to the owners of the property, and I've voiced my opinion, and their exact quote was, "Never hurts to try." I was so taken back with that. Absolute disregard. They have 2 young children of their own, and they're willing to put their children at risk for convenience. And as far as the house goes, it was the second and third last house that was built on the street. I'm in the row house right next to them that were the first ones built for the trained employees. And that's why they became just like night and day with size differential. And as I've said to Robin, the owner of 16, I don't have a problem with their admissions, but I do have a problem with the safety violation in the front. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you.
And ma'am.
Mr. Gain?
Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. Mr. Chair, Michael Ormsby is now online.
Okay, Mr. Gain, we found one of the neighbors in opposition, who we couldn't find before, so we'll just go to him. Mr. Ormsby?
Hello, my name is Linda Canetta Ormsby.
Hi, Linda. You have two devices that are playing the hearing, and they're giving us feedback. Can you turn off one of them for us?
Okay, I just turned off my computer. Is that okay? Okay, so I'm talking on the telephone now, yes?
All right, just a minute. Are you Miss Canetta?
Yeah, Linda Canetta Ormsby, Mrs. Michael Ormsby's wife. We reside the same. He's right here if you want to talk. He preferred that I speak to it, since I know the situation.
What's your address, please?
154 Wolfrey Avenue, Toronto, M4K 1L3.
Okay. Go ahead. Tell us where your property is in relation to the applicant.
Well, we're at Danforth and Logan area in Riverdale, but the reason I'm so interested in the property is that I grew up in that house. My brother Philip now owns it, and so I have a real, I suppose, affection for it, whatever. And I guess why I'm not necessarily objecting to, I just need some clarification, to be honest, and I said that in my submission, because when I read the letter about the variances, and after the other architect, whoever was speaking, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, when he was talking about lot lines and setbacks and all that, I don't pretend to understand any of this. I'm just really looking for clarification. For instance, when I spoke to the applicant, she said that they were not increasing the footprint. It was just basically the second floor addition with on the same footprint as the bump out with the deck. I have no problem with that. But when I read here, and I don't know if I'm reading it correctly, as I say, I'm not familiar with it, they talked about, first of all, that the floor space index is doubling. I hardly think that's minor. And also, the altered dwelling will be located 0.02 meters from the rear lot line. So am I to understand that's from the laneway lot line after what the architect said? Like, I don't understand the discrepancy. How are we getting such an increased floor space index? And I don't know, it talks about the additional dwelling being so close to the lot line. Like, am I confused or what?
All right, so you just put your questions and we'll go to Mr. Gain who can respond.
Well, basically, will the footprint of the existing home increase?
Okay, is that your question?
That's my first question.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, I want to talk about the parking pad, because having grown up there and having used that right-of-way door and whatever, I don't see how, with the hydrant and with the disabled parking, how a car can just simply drive up Tacoma Avenue and go right in. So I just don't know how that can be possible other than getting rid of that right-of-way. And I think my brother made the case for the firefighters and whatever who object to it.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
So I just wanted, yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want to clarify.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
You didn't grow up in 16 Tacoma, you grew up in 14 Tacoma?
14 Tacoma, yes.
Yeah. Okay, because I got a little confused when you started. All right, do you have
Sorry.
anything else to say before we go back to Mr. Gain?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Gain?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Working backwards, I will confirm that the footprint is not changing. We're just simply adding that second floor addition on top, which does increase the floor space index. So we're not doubling the floor space index. Maybe at the end of the day, from what allowed, it is. The existing floor space index, as it stands, what you see today, is 122%, and we're adding about 3 square meters on the back of this thing, which is bumping it up to 124. But yeah, no change to the footprint. I would also like to point out that there's mention about a right-of-way going across this property. There is no registered easements, right-of-ways, nothing. This is private property. Those 2 gates are just for the convenience of the owners, and if maybe the previous tenants or maybe the previous owners have just been walking across private property to go through these gates, and it's been allowed, but essentially there's no registered easements. It's private property. During the pre-circulation.
So, Mr. Canetta, please don't
yes,
interrupt.
hello.
Hello. Mr. Gain,
Can
go
I-
on.
Yes, can I continue?
Yes.
Further, during the pre-circulation of all of this, there was no comments from Toronto Fire about that hydrant, and I'll talk to that a little bit in more detail in a second. If that fire hydrant was required to access the northern properties or anywhere else, I really doubt that Toronto Fire would allow any sort of gate that could potentially be locked that could impede this access to the fire hydrant. So we've never heard of that. We've never been circulated on that by Toronto Fire. Nothing. So I don't think that's true. So if I can get my covering letter back up, I would like to bring up some photographs. It would be, yes, that one. So page 1 of the photographs. If we can zoom in on photograph number 5. This photograph, the White House is the subject property. All on the right is our private property, the front yard. The garbage cans is basically where the parking space is going to be, and there's the fire hydrant that they were talking about. If I turn to the next page, photo number 8. You can see essentially the property line is right down the middle of that gap between the 2 houses, and that fire hydrant is completely in front of number 14, nowhere near our property. Nothing will be blocked. There will be no car parking in front of that fire hydrant. And also in that picture, the hydro pole on the left, you can see the handicap parking sign, which means that there's no parking to the right of that sign. The handicap spot actually begins at that pole and heads to the left. So the way it's been for the last, I don't know, however many years, that gap, which is, I think, about 3.5 meters from the pole to the curb, which is basically where our property is completely free. There is no parking allowed in that section. So as far as cars driving up and down there, the residents are going to do what they've been doing for the last however long cars have been in Toronto. It's a narrow street. They drive up. They make a three-point turn at the top of the street using this kind of gap between our property line and the telephone pole before the handicap spot. Maybe it's a three-point turn, maybe it's a four-point turn, but then they come back, head back south, and parallel park on the right on the west side of Tacoma. That, it will remain the same. Whether they back up, I think the tenants, my clients even say they reverse up the lot. It's a tight street. Ideally, there should be 5.5 meter drive aisle with another 3 meter parking space, but that's not the case. So the status quo is going to remain. The access to all these parking spaces, the fire hydrant, the handicap spots, all does not change based on our parking pad, which is, again, completely 100% on private property. No encroachment into the boulevard, no blocking fire hydrants. I believe I captured the comments. I can speak again about the property lines, but I think that was pretty clear in my original discussions, unless the committee wishes me to mention that again.
All right, thank you. Any questions, panel? Peter?
Thanks. Yeah, I just have one question, and it's about the transportation department comment that, if I understand correctly, they want this to be a through space to allow the car access straight through to the adjoining lane. Can you tell me your thoughts about that, please?
Concerns with that? Oh, sorry. Hello. We had two concerns about that. Number one, there's about a 14-inch grade change between that parking space and the lane at the back, so there would have to be some curbs or access. Number one, to do that. Number two, given the comments from the neighbors talking about how they just walk through there, if that fence is removed, I believe that everybody in the street is going to treat this as a thoroughfare, which is really not the case and should be the case on this property. This is private property. So if we do remove that fence and try to block this potential thoroughfare that the neighbors might enjoy, the fence would probably move to the south side of this property, which would really then kind of create an enclosing effect and really not the look and the kind of the characteristic of the street of what's been happening. So we feel, you know, I think their comments, like I said, it's just they want what they want, but this is just the existing situation, and the neighbors have been tolerating this kind of narrow street and fighting for street parking, and you know, you come down, you either back out or make a bunch of point turn at the top and head out. So I think the desired situation is what we're submitting.
Okay, any further questions? Any comments? Do we have a motion? Peter?
I'll start with some comments. I think this is a complicated one, so I'd like to hear my colleagues' thoughts too, but I think the actual building addition that's being proposed is completely minor. It's just a few square meters, and it's not expanding the footprint. I think that's fine, and I think the strange nature of the lot in terms of what's front and what's rear, that's triggered most of these variances. For me, the only difficult part is the car in the front. But I think I'm supportive of that as well. I think just because it's at the dead end of the street, and I don't think it detracts from the streetscape, or it's not a material change of what's there now. I think it's already a paved area. And if indeed there are no rights of way through, then I think that it's not having a negative impact on the neighbors and on the other people who would use that right of way. And to the transportation department comment, I wasn't aware of the grade change of over a foot there, and I do agree that if that was open, I think that would be used both by pedestrians and vehicles as well. So I'm inclined to approve this application, but not with the transportation condition.
Joanne?
Okay, I would agree with what Peter said. When I was first reviewing this application, was a little perplexed with respect to the parking issue and the transportation comments. But in looking at the survey, I don't see any right of way on the survey, as has been noted in the submissions. The clarity with respect to the change of grade answers the concerns with respect to would be an easy solution coming off the laneway. because of where the fire hydrant is and because of where the accessible parking space is, there is no parking at the butt end of the street in any event. So it's not taking away a street parking situation. So it's not aggravating any condition from what I can see and what the submissions have indicated. And as my colleague has said, with respect to the variances for the home, I don't have a concern with those. I think what's being proposed is appropriate and minor. And I think the clarifications and information we've seen with respect to the parking has answered my questions with respect to that variance, and I would be able to support the application, and I would not impose the transportation condition.
Okay. Aaron, do you have any comments?
No, no extra comment. I agree with both of my colleagues. Thank you.
So, Peter, do you want to bring a motion?
Sure, I'm happy to move a motion for approval with no conditions.
All right, Joanne, second. All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you. Next, number 15, 192 Humberside Avenue. The purpose of this application to alter the existing building by constructing a front one-story addition, a rear two-story addition, and a rear ground floor deck. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and a form letter in support from 195 Humberside Avenue. Darren Sanger Smith.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can we have your name and address for the record, please?
Certainly, my name is Darren Sanger Smith. I'm the agent for 192 Humberside Avenue. My address is 2061 Maria Street in Burlington, Ontario.
Okay, panel, do we need a presentation? No, we don't need it. Mr. Sanger Smith, do you have anything to say before we take it into committee?
I have no further comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any comments, or do we have a motion? Peter?
I'm happy to bring a motion. I think what's being proposed is a very minor change from what's there now. I think the impacts of it as well are minor. So I move for approval of the application with no conditions.
Right. You seconded, Joanne. All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you. Number 16, 203 Joffrey Street. The purpose of this application to legalize and maintain the construction of a dormer on the west side of the dwelling, also to rebuild the existing dormer on the east side of the dwelling. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. And support from 6 properties on Joffrey. Jennifer Buckland.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Can we have your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Jennifer Buckland. I'm the agent for the owners of 203 Joffrey Street, and my address is 16 Neepawa Avenue,
Okay.
Toronto.
So I'm sure we don't need a presentation on this one. Do you have anything to say before we take it into committee?
No, I don't. I think it's a pretty small variance and, you know, pretty straightforward. And yeah, I don't really have much more to say about it.
Okay, thank you. Panel, Joanne? Joanne?
Yes, thanks. You know, it's unfortunate that this wasn't caught before the construction was done. Having said that, however, I think the variance being requested can be considered minor. There are other examples of side dormers on the street, maybe not quite as large, but I don't think the size of the dormer or the height of the dormer has any tremendous change in impact over what is existing character on the street. And if my colleagues have no further comments, I would move a motion to approve the application with no conditions.
All right, seconder. Aaron, all in favor? Have your approval. Thank you. Number 17, 108 Salmon Avenue. The purpose of this application is to convert the existing one-story, one-unit detached dwelling into a two-story, two-unit detached dwelling by installing a new unit in the basement and constructing a second-story addition, a front one-story addition with a front porch, as well as a rear two-story addition with a cantilevered second-story addition and a rear ground floor deck. A new ancillary building, a one-story detached garage, will also be constructed in the rear yard of the property. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from community planning, and support from two properties on Salmon Avenue. Or actually, one property, two different parties. Mr. Gerber.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can we have your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Joel Gerber. I'm the architect representing George, the client on this property. My address is 23 Doncaster Avenue in East York.
Okay, can we have some opposition, so can we have your presentation, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you for your time. I'll try to keep this short and sweet. The proposal for the two-story home attempted to be sympathetic to the neighborhood, pursuing a slight height variance for a slope.
Chair, may I interrupt just for a second before he starts a formal presentation?
Yes.
I wondered whether, in the supplementary material, there was a lot of revisions to the variances. I wondered if the applicant's representative could just go over those before he starts into the rationale. That would be helpful to me. Thank you.
No problem at all. Yeah, we were contacted by community planning not very long ago, and we discussed some of their concerns regarding the front yard and side yard setback in terms of being a little bit too close to the street relative to the rest of the neighborhood. So we were very happy in agreeing to oblige, and we fairly significantly reduced the front yard setback as well as the side yard setback to reduce that kind of massing.
Could you go through the variances noted on the notice and tell us which have changed and the numbers, please?
Of course. The third variance regarding maximum building length was reduced from 19.84 to 18.92 meters. The front yard setback was increased to 2.14 meters from the 1.23 meters. And the side yard setback was increased to 0.53 meters from the 0.32 meters. So essentially by taking that front addition, the one-story addition, we basically, I guess, killed three birds with one stone. We reduced the front yard.
I think the lot, did I note that the lot covers, so variance number 1 is going to 48?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that was reduced as well. My apologies.
Do you have the square meters for that?
I believe that was in the waiver. Let me just double check that. I have it open here. Yeah, so the proposed lot coverage is 48%, which is equal to 143.93 square meters.
Thank you very much. That's helpful.
My pleasure.
Okay, Mr. Gerber, would you go ahead with your presentation, please?
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, I guess I'll kind of go through each of the variances and kind of give our design rationale in relation to the recent communications with community planning. So the intention behind the slight variance of the roof height, while the side yard or the side wall main height was not a variance, we were trying to achieve a certain roof pitch to blend kind of symbiotically into the neighborhood, which justified the height variance. Part of the front porch was enclosed as part of the living space, so that kind of unfortunately contributed to the building length as well as the front yard setback. So by reducing that as enclosed space, it helped from the presence of the street and that massing at the street level. The intention with the FSI was that the second floor floats out over the backyard so that the soft landscaping would not be hindered, so to speak, by further the deck or the window well, and the bedroom area, requested by the client's family had kind of justified that slight FSI variance. So the 2-story house, as opposed to the 3-story, was a little bit more, like I said, symbiotic to the neighborhood, and in keeping the angular roof plane, we felt that kind of typology of residential fit quite nicely into the neighborhood. And I think that I mean, the lot coverage and the setbacks are obviously a byproduct of the space program and what have you. So that concludes the presentation at a high level.
Thank you. Any questions, panel? All right, Chi Lin?
Just 1 minute, Mr. Chair.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay. Good morning, Chairman and committee members. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Shin Lin, and I'm speaking on behalf of my mom, who is the owner of the property at 110 Salmon Avenue, and voicing the concern of our tenant. So my mom has not been reached out regarding the construction, so we're just reviewing their plan after receiving the notice for hearing recently. We have reviewed the site plan dated March 7th of 2022, and we have some concerns with regards to the proposal at 1087 with variance 1 for lot coverage of 48%, which they've corrected now, variance for maximum height building of 9.5 meter, and variance 3 for maximum length. So our house is to the east side of the 108 Salmon Avenue. It's a small bungalow with very limited natural lighting because it's an older house with smaller windows. And at the west end of the house, adjacent to 108 Salmon Avenue, we have 3 small windows, which is more than 1/3 of all our windows on the main floor. This window will help to provide a lot of natural lighting for the bedroom, living room, and dining room. So with 2-story expansion, it would have already impacted the lighting, but they decide to go with a cantilever expansion towards the east side of the house on the second floor, and then a higher building height, and this will result in an even more blockage of natural lighting from the west end of the home. And we believe that this will severely impact the enjoyment of the home. And we also have concern with the cantilever expansion on the rear end that would cause blockage of natural lighting to the back of the house, and maybe an eyesore and obstruct vision from the bedroom in the back and the backyard. And my mom has seen addition to bungalow to 2-story in the neighborhood, but she feels like most of the second floor have been built directly on top of the first floor, not changing the footprint of the house. So we're concerned why they decide to increase the footprint of the house and go with the cantilever style and expand westwards and towards the rear. And our tenant have only moved in September last year, and they're just starting to enjoy the neighborhood. It would be a shame if they have to move within less than a year due to this project, as they feel the project will severely impact the reasonable enjoyment of their home. So thank you everyone for your time, and I hope you're taking consideration our concerns.
All right, any questions, panel? Mr. Gerber?
Yeah, thank you for unmuting me. No, I mean, we respect and are sympathetic to the commentary. I promise, as part of the design process, you'll notice that we had set the second floor quite a bit back from the ground floor projections, and also sculpted the roof in such a way to try to try to minimize the blockage of the setting sun. The positive news is that being on the east side, the impedance of direct light would be from the west, so the kind of the setting sun. And because of the shared driveway and the kind of sculpting of the building massing, we did try to pay homage or be respectful of that small bungalow to the side of this existing bungalow. That was part of the design rationale. And obviously being tight to the property on the west, we were forced to shift slightly to the east. So it's a fairly minor cantilever to the east, but that was kind of some of the design rationale and where we were trying to work with the community.
All right, any questions, panel?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to take this opportunity just to go through the revisions one more time because I think one revision was missed. So variance number 1 will be reduced to 48%, which is 143.93 square meters. Variance number 2 is no change. Variance number 3 has been reduced to 18.92 meters. Variance number 4 is reduced to 0.76 times the area of the lot, which is 226.16 square meters. Variance number 5 is increased to 2.14 meters, and variance number 6 is increased to 0.53 meters. And if Mr. Gerber can just confirm that that is correct moving forward.
Yes, I mean, it was a bit unfortunate because of timing that we couldn't have a formal zoning notice keep up with our conversations with community planning. So this was our proposal. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, panel? Joanne?
Just from a lot coverage perspective, what lot coverage is the property a couple of doors to the east, the newer build?
So to answer your question, I guess what's important to consider is the neighbor due west of this property, their rear main wall is actually further into their yard than ours. That's part of the justification for the cantilever. So where our cantilevered second floor almost aligns with the neighbor to the west, our ground floor was actually set in kind of on strategic grounds. So the idea is that kind of from the ground plane or from the kind of human perspective, it wasn't so oppressive, if you will, on the site or from the rear yard experience.
No, I understand that. I'm asking, you need a variance for lot coverage.
Yes.
So I'm just asking if you can give me some examples.
Oh, so I guess
lot coverage in the immediate area. I noticed that there's, in looking at the information, that there's, I acknowledge the house to the south goes deeper than or to the west goes deeper. There's one, I just wonder from a lot coverage perspective, is this out of line? The 48%, is that representative of the neighborhood?
So in our opinion, there's quite a few precedents that have significantly larger lot coverage relationships. For instance, I think there's a few, I don't have the file numbers with me from when we did our committee research of local precedents, but I'm quite confident that a number of properties in the vicinity have fairly large relationships to both FSI and lot coverage juxtaposed to this proposal.
Okay, in future, it would be helpful if you have that information available as part of your justification. Thank you.
All right, panel. Any further questions or comments? Do we have a motion? Joanne?
Thank you. I appreciate that the applicant has taken into consideration the comments or the position of planning with respect to the matter and made some adjustments to their proposal that would make it more, the built form, not as overwhelming and not as close to the street and more in keeping with some of the other developments that have occurred in the neighborhood. As a result of those changes, although I do appreciate what the neighbor has said with respect to the cantilevered section, I think with the shared driveway there and the roof design, I think it's tried to be sympathetic to having lesser impact on that neighbor as possible. And I think on a whole, I think the variances are appropriate and meet the 4 tests, and I can support the application. And I don't believe there are any conditions. And I would be prepared to make that motion. My colleagues have no comments.
Peter?
I'd just like to make one suggestion. So I think in the planning recommendations, their third recommendation was to tie it to
Yeah,
elevations.
tie it to plan, to tie it to the plan.
And as amended as well.
Yes. So approved as amended, tied to plan.
You seconded, Peter?
Yes.
All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you. Number 18, 125 DuPont Street. The purpose of the application is to construct interior alterations to the ground and second levels of the townhouse to increase the gross floor area. We have material submitted by the applicant. We have support from 4 properties on DuPont Street. Allison Milne.
Allison Milne, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hello there. My name is Allison Milne, and I'm the agent on behalf of the homeowners at 125 DuPont Street. I live at 94 Bested Avenue in Toronto.
Okay. I don't think we need a presentation. Do you have anything to say before we take it into committee?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Panel, do you have any questions, comments, emotion? Peter?
I think this is extremely straightforward. It's about enclosing an area about the size of a phone booth. And so there are no negative implications if the variance is being requested. I think they're extremely minor. So I move to approve with no conditions.
Right. Joanne, you second the motion? Okay. All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Number 20. 170 Cedric Avenue. Purpose of the application to alter the existing 1-story detached dwelling by constructing a complete 2nd-story addition, a partial 3rd-story addition, and a 1st-story rear deck. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant only. And we have Amar Roba.
Amar, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Amar?
May we have your name and your address, sir?
Hello?
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 Hi.
We're having some technical difficulties with your hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes?
Perfect. My name is Amar from YAJ Studio at 250 Shields Court, Markham, on behalf of the property owner for 170 Cedric.
Okay. So, panel, do we need a presentation? No, we don't need a presentation. Mr. Robot, do you have anything to say before I take it into committee?
No, I'm open for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, panel, comments, emotion? Peter?
I just have one question. In relation to the rear yard soft landscaping, there's a large that's a pretty large variance being requested, and I'm wondering if you thought of any ways that you could improve that.
Well, the thing is, this this garage is an existing garage. It's the only way for cars to get into that garage is to have that much asphalt. The only way is but the thing is, it's a right of way. I can't even change the asphalt in the right of way to interlock or anything like this. So, I'm open for any suggestions, but there's nothing really much we can do because the garage is existing, that asphalt area is existing, and the only reason it was flagged is because of this application.
Right. Would you be open to replacing that asphalt with permeable pavers?
Well, in front of the garage, yes, but in the right-of-way area, as long as the neighbor approved that or is willing to do that with us, then we cannot do it. But the area in front of the garage in the backyard, sure, we can do that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Joanne?
So if, because even with looking at the diagram, it looks like, even to access that garage, you'd be able to improve something. Is permeable, other than permeable pavers, like right in front of the deck, do you
Well, I need a maneuvering area, a maneuvering part for the car to turn to be able to get into the garage.
Yeah,
And
I
we have
recognize it's existing, but as my colleague said, it is quite very, very deficient. Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any comments or a motion? Peter?
I mean, considering it's an existing condition, and considering the applicant's willingness to partially address it, at least through permeable pavers, I can support the application. So I'll put forward a motion for approval subject to a condition that the rear driveway portion, not within the shared right-of-way, be reconstructed with permeable pavers.
Okay, we have a seconder, Joanne. All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. That ends the morning list at 12:22 p.m. We return at 2, Sabrina? 2 o'clock.